Good morning, everyone. Welcome to How To's of Ascension with Angela Blaha. Today, I want to talk about empathy. Why? Because do you know if you are an empath? What does it mean to be an empath? Is your definition of empathy or being an empath highly sensitive to feel the emotions of another person? Is that what empathy means to you? Well, every single one of us have some degree of empathy. Like everyone on the planet has is an empath. What degree that you pay attention to it is what determines how you control it or you just let it loose and go crazy. Good morning, everyone. So glad you're joining me. So each one of us share this, I want to call it an entanglement of how we pick up on other people's emotions, right? Like we're masters at it because we have past memory in ourselves that tell us that we can share so that we can share an experience. That's how we get along as people, right? When someone has a catastrophe or super trauma in their life, like we pull from the energy of our past traumas and we can empathize with someone. We can sort of feel how they feel, right? And that's how we get to understand someone's experience. Now, to be an empath does not mean that you leave yourself wide open to feel everyone else's feelings or emotions. If you have the ability, or if you are sensitive, or if you are aware that you're an empath, then you should be taking steps or using tools or knowing yourself so well that you either allow yourself to be in someone else's experience or you don't. So, how do we, if we know that we have and we're conscious about our level of empathy, then we know that we use tools to not guard us or not keep us from our empathic abilities, but we use tools so that we don't have to be a sponge to someone else's emotions, right? Because we aren't sponges, but we can associate in someone else's experience. So some tools to use so that you're not a sponge. When you walk into a room or you go to a mall or you, wherever it is, I don't care, you come home sometimes, right? You come home and you're like, wow, this energy in here is kind of funky. What's happening? Well, you could return it back to its sender, right? Like you don't have to take on someone else's emotions. Actually, that's one of the worst things that you can do is take on someone else's emotions because literally you're taking away their experience. Now, we do that thinking that we care and love and are so compassionate that we just want to help them. We just want to take on their emotions or their experience or their perception when actually we're doing harm to them because we're not allowing them to have their full gamut of their experience, which probably has some sort of lesson in it for them. So if you notice that you're taking on someone else's emotion, give it back. Like you're an energy being. You can totally give that energy back to them. Stop taking on someone else's emotions. When you take on someone else's emotions, it confuses you. You end up being confused about who you are, why you're here. You lose your sense of purpose, right? You lose your sense of clarity because you're taking on someone else's stuff. And what happens when we take on someone else's stuff is we end up creating this sort of complex matrix within our own energy field And we don't know what's ours and what's not ours. So we end up confused. We end up foggy mind. We end up with, I just don't know what to do today. Or we end up with losing our purpose or misplacing it or not being clear about what it is. So dig deeper into why you leave your empathy abilities wide open. Right? Like, why are you taking on other people's stuff? What's the purpose of that? That's the second thing that you can ask yourself and dig in deeper into who you are is, why am I doing that? What am I getting from doing that? Because we are doing creatures. We haven't totally come out of that paradigm yet. And so we do things because we get something from it. Maybe we feel better about ourselves, or maybe we just can't stand to see someone suffering or what we think is suffering, when it's actually, maybe it's the best enlightenment tool we can give them. So when you take on someone else's emotions, what happens is those emotions latch onto your old memory that's stored in your mind or your cells or your DNA. And the mind always wants to turn it into some sort of negative or lower vibration than some sort of lack mentality, right? This causes you to think that there is something wrong with you. Again, pulling you into your lack emotions, into your I'm not good enough kind of emotions or thoughts, into I'm not worthy kind of emotions and thoughts. So that's what happens to you when you're taking on someone else's emotions, because your mind will instantaneously take it, your egoic mind will instantaneously take it and make something of it that's not even yours. So I hope that makes sense. Please ask your questions in the thread here so I can answer them. If you are, and you know that you're empathic, then how are you controlling it? Because you're the only one that can control it. You are not a victim of your empathy, right? You are not a victim of your emotions or your thoughts or your belief systems. You control all of those things. They do not control you. Cassandra, I feel this way about my boyfriend's insecurities. Why are you taking on his insecurities? Why are you being insecure? I'm going to say that you're not taking them on. You're allowing him to mirror your own insecurities. So, why are you taking on, or why are you being a mirror to his when it's really your own insecurities? Now, I realize that is sometimes hard to handle because we don't want to look at our own insecurities, right? We don't want to look at our own stuff. But think of the value in actually looking at your own self, saying, yeah, I see that in me, and I'm blaming him. Because it's never about anyone else, it's always about the self. You're welcome, Lisa. I aim to please, and I aim to be on target every single week. All right, what other questions do you have? Comments, questions? So if you're having problems with understanding your own empathy, start by trying to make sense of it. Like, what's the meaning that you have about being an open book or an open field to emotions and feelings? Now, some people are here for that experience, to understand emotions. Some people are here to not understand emotions. Some people are here to take on so many other people's emotions that they have no idea who they are. Now, that might be true in the lacking paradigm of the past. It is not true moving into the future of ascension, because we need to be very clear about who we are and what we're doing. And the emotions are one of the games of separation that literally keep you bound to separation through the entanglement of emotions, because emotions, they don't come one by one. They come in a group. And so it's hard to understand our emotions. It's hard to understand someone else's emotions because those are all perception based. They are based on your experience, your belief systems, and your thought forms. That's how emotions are created. So if you're taking on someone else's emotion of, let's say, resentment, and you're entangling it with your own resentment, maybe it turns into bitterness then. Do you see how you're taking someone else's energy on and making it yours, but then it all of a sudden turns into something totally different? Now you have your bitterness to deal with, your resentment to deal with, and their resentment to deal with. Because you're taking that energy into you, you're trying to process it. It's creating so much crazy thoughts, creating so much I'm not worthy kind of thoughts, and it's creating so much I have no idea who I am or why I'm here kind of thoughts. You see how it gets so entangled that you have no idea how to pull it apart then? So then you have to pull yourself back, put yourself back into your own energy field and say, okay, what's really mine? What's really my truth here? Because if I'm trying to move forward in my career, in my life, in my relationships, in anything that I do, I really have to know what's mine and what's not mine. And just because we're empathic, just because we can understand someone else's emotions, does not equal taking them on. So stop being an open book. Your empathy does not control you. You control it. You set those boundaries that say, oh, no, I can understand that they're crying and that they're having a bad day, but I do not have to take that on and make me have a bad day. Aw, awesome. Well, lessons are not always easy or fun, but we have to work through them so that we can enlighten and ascend and move into the new earth, into the Aquarian age. So, all right. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to pop off and drink some water. So have an amazing day. If you have questions, please ask them in the thread and I will get to them. If you can tag me though, so that I don't miss anyone, that would be awesome. And if you're interested in learning more about Angela Blaha and how I can help and serve you, please let me know or check out my website at www.angelablaha.com. Take care, and I will see you next week.